Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to those people who are listening to us. We are live on the Gunners Town Postmatch Pubcast. It's me, Suburban Gooner Chris, feeling, if you might be able to already tell, a little bit deflated after our 1-0 defeat at the hands of Manchester City, who are romping the league at the moment. Thank you if you are joining us live straight after the show. It's always good to have people join us and talk to us. As always, if you want to give us a shout out with your thoughts, that would be fantastic. But we're here to talk about I'm really struggling to work out whether or not I'm really disappointed or just kind of resigned, or I've got mixed emotions today. And sharing me in the mixed emotions on the podcast is Paul, who is at Invincible. Hello, Paolo.
Hello, how's it, Chris? Hi, James.
And yes, you've introduced the second guest, which is James, who's Cookie. James, how you doing? You all right?
Yeah, very well, mate. Thanks for having me on again, guys.
Let's get the initial proceedings out of the way. I am drinking a Sol to drown my troubles after the defeat. Paul, your bathtub full of?
It's a goldfish bowl full of gin. It's actually a fantastic gin. It's called Bar Hill, and it's from Vermont, and it's made with honey, like some kind of honey thing, and it's even got like wax, like a wax seal. They didn't pay me to put this placement in, but it's a really good gin. If you live in the States, you should try and get it. Bar Hill gin, yeah.
Gin recommendations there from Invinciblog. Cookie, what are you drinking?
I've unfortunately got nothing. I've completely forgotten about it, I'll be honest with you. However, I think I can make up for that. So my girlfriend recently got me this. It's a massive jar of multicolored sweets.
That's
probably
right.
reflecting just how old I am.
The Gummy Town
pub. That.
Just go for the sugar high, mate. Go for the sugar high, because quite frankly, Cookie, I'll start with you. I'm not feeling very high at the moment on my Arsenal life. I feel really flat after that. Is that just because I see that as a bit of a wasted opportunity, that second half? Or is it just because Man City didn't really need to get out of first gear?
I think it's a bit of both, really. Obviously, the way the game started, I thought this was going to be 4, 5, 6, 7, like 9-0 potentially. The way they started, just wave off the wave off the wave. But I think the reality is they got this done literally within 2 minutes, and then realised we're not a threat at all. Sat back and just made it very, very easy for themselves. We had a few half chances. We had that Kieran Tierney shot on goal. Saka had a chance. Apart from that, I can't think of anything we created, particularly of note. Pepe was hardly involved in the game. Odegaard really struggled to get into the game as well. It's I agree with you. It was a real waste opportunity, I thought, especially when you look at players that we took out of the side. You know, we replaced Ceballos with El Nene. Felt like we were surrendering a little bit right at the beginning. Not that I thought El Nene was poor. I don't think he offered anything when you're looking to create, which is something we needed to do, especially in the second half of this game. So yeah, I completely agree. Waste opportunity, but credit to City. I mean, they are very, very, very good, particularly defensively this season. In the past, we've spoken so much about how good they are going forward. They're not only very good at that this season, but their defensive side of the game is unreal. The fact they've got Diaz, Laporte not even in the team tonight, and then they've got someone like John Stones who's really come into his own this season. I mean, yeah, they're a phenomenal defensive side as well.
Yeah, it was chalk and cheese, wasn't it, really, when you looked at the City bench and the options that they've got. And then before the game, you've got Mikel Arteta saying, when he was asked about the rotation, because he did obviously rotate, he just said, I don't really have much choice. I've got some players that couldn't even properly train. So, Paul, in terms of the lineup, like I tweeted beforehand saying #Rotationsville, were you happy with that lineup? Was there anything that surprised you? And then let's talk through the actual way the game started.
As far as the lineup goes, I was surprised a little bit. I think it seemed like Arteta had immediately kind of put us on the back foot a little bit with El Neni. I'm always worried when Pepe starts, because he's just you just never know what you're going to get with him, and in big games like this, I just was worried that he wasn't going to to deliver. And he actually wasn't that bad. So in retrospect, though, like James mentioned El Neni earlier, and he didn't let us down at all. I just think, with a start like that, I think everything kind of went out the window, because I think we had a really good game plan. I think we grew into the game not I think we grew into the game because Arteta had figured out how to nullify Gundogan and De Bruyne. I think that the man marking and like that man-on-man player marking really was effective, and I think that's why we managed to contain them, because I don't think they could really use their creative choices up front.
Did we contain
their
them?
defense is too good for our creative choice, I felt.
Paul, did we contain them though? Because like in that first 10 minutes, they probably should have had a few. And do you know what my problem was? When I was watching us for the first 25 minutes, I saw essentially a complete static line of red shirts. And so what was happening was City players were dropping deeper and then making those forward runs and then just getting in behind time and time again. So I'm not sure whether we did contain them. I just think we were a little bit fortunate, not, that we managed to keep it to just to the one goal, if I'm honest. But just quickly touch on that, and then we'll move on to the goal itself with Cookie in a second.
Sorry, I can't hear any of that. Can you hear that, James?
Yeah, I got that.
Yeah, maybe you want to answer then, mate. So basically, I've got like
R2D2 going on here, and I have no idea what's going on.
Apologies, Cookie. Cookie, we'll go to you then. So do you think we contained them? And I was talking about that flat line of Arsenal defenders, which were really, really static, and then talk me through the goal and your thoughts on it as well.
Yeah, I mean, no, I'm in agreement with you, mate. I don't think we particularly contained them. You just saw the amount of times they cut through us, and with a bit of better finishing, then yeah, they could definitely have scored. But I think also, you've got to give us a bit of credit. I did think we defended well to the point. It was a bit last ditch at times, and I think with the goal, it was just so poor. I mean, I think that's the one downside of bringing in Holding and Mari compared to Luiz and Gabriel, who obviously started against Benfica, is, even though they're good options and they did so well for us when we went through that good patch where we beat the likes of Brighton, Newcastle, West Brom, they've come in today and you could just tell like that both of them haven't played for a little bit. It was evident in the first instance. And I actually thought Rob Holding, after that, had a very good game. The way he played out
second half
was really good. Yeah, I thought he was phenomenal. Yeah, I thought he was really, really good. It's just on that, I mean, you can't get beaten in the air by Raheem Sterling, who's literally half the size of you. And it's not just them two. I thought Bellerin could have done a lot better on it as well. Just he didn't seem to give Holding a shout, let him know that Sterling was behind him. I thought Bellerin's all-round games was pretty subpar, to be honest with you. But defensively, yeah, those opening 10 minutes, we definitely could have done a bit better. And that's the one thing, as I say, we've taken out Luiz and Gabriel and replaced them with two guys that haven't played in a little bit. But what I will say is it's quite refreshing to actually have players like Holding and Mari come into the side and you don't lose too much of a defensive stability. Obviously, that goes out the window in the first minute, but it's nice to have better options in reserve, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think he's been better, and I'd agree with you. The second half, Holding, I thought was better, but I thought he was poor in the first half. I thought for the goal, he didn't really know where Sterling was. You really got with a player like that, you need to know that sort of stuff. Again, I'm with you. I thought Bellerin also could have given him a shout. He could have made 2 steps infield, and he's covering that sort of space. But also, Sky made a hell of a lot about. They repeatedly went on and on and on about Sterling's jump. I've watched it a few times, and I'm like, yeah, it's not like exactly like a Ronaldo-esque leaping like a salmon. So he's like 10 foot off the air. He jumps, but his feet are just kind of fall back, like sort of retract backwards to make it look like he's jumped higher than he actually is. Sterling is 5'7" and Rob Holding is 6'2". That's 6 inches. Sterling probably leapt to about 6'2", 6'3". Rob Holding needs to be getting on that. So he's culpable for that goal. And then we were just shell-shocked. I thought Holding was shell-shocked for at least about 10, 15 minutes after that. He made a couple of dodgy passes. Not just him, though. There was one pass with Bellerin where he's basically just kicked the ball out of play. And that was one of the things that really frustrated me about the game today, because I thought that we were poor in the final third and our passing range was really annoying. Like I've written down, the amount of times that we miscontrolled or mishit passes or underhit passes just drove me mad. And in the final third, I never ever was convinced that we were going to ever trouble them in the final third. Were you?
Yeah, I mean, it's the exact same against Benfica, really, isn't it? Get into all those good positions, but then when it comes to actually putting the ball in the right place, it just doesn't work out for us. I thought Saka got himself into some really, really good spots, but then when it came to actually playing that final ball, he let himself down a little bit. as you say, I think with a slightly better ball in the end, we'd maybe have scored in this game. But yeah, all round, I mean, we didn't look like troubling them at all. I think defensively they were so stable, so comfortable. And when they realised that we didn't really have enough to penetrate them with, then they kind of accepted it for what it was and just let us do our thing, really, which made it quite comfortable for them and a very dull game in the second half in particular. But I think that's what happens if you take, Ceballos out, if you don't play Smith Rowe. You're obviously going to lose that bit of creativity. In fact, quite a lot of creativity, and you're not going to get a goal when you've got El Neni in the midfield. I'm just being realistic there. I know he's good at some things, but getting you back into a game, he is not. No, okay. No, you said it, not me. I'm not being held culpable for that.
Yeah. Well, so my view on the El Neni thing is like it just depresses me when he's on the pitch because it's sideways or backwards. Like he can even see 10-yard passes forward that he just doesn't make, and that drives me mad. I mean, I see him starting, and I think to myself, immediately it's like we're down to 10 men. It's really just depressing hearing that Mo El Neni is in the team, and I did wonder how Xhaka's game would be affected after we found out that El Neni was partnering him, because Xhaka and El Neni has been a horrible collective, hasn't it? But I actually thought Xhaka was one of the better players today. What do you think?
Yeah, I thought Xhaka was good, and I just don't want to keep going back to El Neni. I don't think he's a bad player. I don't think he's a particularly good player. I just think if you're in a situation where you've got 10, 15 minutes to go, you're holding up for a 1-0 lead, and you just want someone to run around, cause a bit of havoc, fine. He is absolutely fine for that. But if you're looking for someone to start a game, be progressive, especially if you want to dominate the ball, which we did in spells today. That's the frustrating thing. We did have good spells of possession, but we did absolutely nothing with. And I think Xhaka, with Ceballos and with Smith Rowe around him, we would have seen a lot more opportunities. And just general, if he'd had more runners around him, I think that's something we really lacked today as well. We were so static in the midfield, and in terms of passing it out from the back, sometimes it worked, sometimes it was just very side to side, very backwards and forwards without getting anywhere really progressively. I thought, as I say, Ødegaard struggled to get into this game quite a bit. But Xhaka was, the one shining light, which I think is a good thing considering he was quite poor against Benfica. I don't want to be too harsh on him because he has been, I think, probably our best player since the turn of the year. But he was pretty below his standards in midweek, and I hope that tonight's game will get him certainly back to where he needs to be for that game on a Thursday night, which is now so important after we've lost this one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that we had any real chance of competing for the maybe the European spots, but certainly not the Champions League spots this season. I know we're not that far. Well, we're 11 points, I think, off of West Ham, which is mental and bizarre in itself when you think about it. But to me, this game was a free hit. I think you had said it beforehand, hadn't you? I don't think there was many Arsenal fans that thought that we would win it, but it's just when these games, I guess it's gameplay state, isn't it? When it then plays itself out and you see the match unfold as it does, the first 10 minutes, we're all thinking, oh God, this is going to be horrible. That period, about 10 minutes before half time and in the second half, it felt like we were just a bit within ourselves. We were a bit passive. It's like we knew how good City were and they could hit us on the break. And so we seemed to slow things down. Is that just me? Like, do you notice that sometimes when certain game states, we seem to slow down in terms of the urgency, when you would have thought, like even with 5 minutes to go, I was expecting us to be a bit quicker in our passing, but we were so passive and quiet, like visually quiet on the pitch. It was just slow movement. Maybe it's players that are tired. Maybe that was an element of it. What do you reckon?
I think maybe it's slightly is a mentality thing in that sense. I think that's been a problem for a little while, where we come up against teams like Manchester City, who are so in form, won practically every game this year. I think they have done every single game this year. What was that? Their 18th in a row. And we just feel inferior to them, which we shouldn't do, because we know how we can play. I mean, we can play really, really, really well when we've got the ball, but it's just we are a little bit passive. We're a little bit negative, and we just subside to defeat in these types of games sometimes. It's a horrible thing to say, but it just does kind of feel like that sometimes. And I do feel like it was a free hit today in the sense that everyone expected us to lose. But when, like you say, you see the game unfold and you see we're going to have good spells of possession, without a shadow of a doubt, we had an opportunity today and we failed to take it. So it's very frustrating from that point of view. But I still think we're going in the right direction. I think last season, maybe under Emery, would have lost this game considerably by the margin. But
Yeah.
I still think that there's still a shift that needs to be forced through a little bit more.
Yeah, I do too. And also, one of the things that I thought before this game, if you think about everything that was working against us in terms of just our current situation. So you've got a Man City team who are basically beating every single person. They're probably the best team in Europe, maybe the world right now, with the form that they're playing. So they're in form. Our form is patchy. They went to Everton on Wednesday as their league game, and so what? Liverpool and Manchester is, a hop across on the I can't remember which motorway it is, but it's not a long journey to get from Liverpool to Everton. We went to Rome on the next day. We had players like Saka, Aubameyang. We've got most of our better players, the players that played today that then also played on Thursday. They're knackered. Some of them were absolutely knackered, I would imagine. They probably would have got back on Friday morning, early hours of Friday morning.
You've then probably Friday,
got Friday off. Yeah. So exactly, you've got Friday and then Saturday. They've probably got a bit of training that they do, but you've done a bit of traveling, blah 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 blah, and then you've got a game now. So it was I felt like that was weighted against us. It was the form of City, it's the situation that we're in, and we're still missing key players. Kieran Tierney's still coming back. Paul, are you with us? Are you
I
good?
am sorry. Third world issues here. The Wi-Fi just.
Don't worry. We're just talking. I'm talking about mitigating circumstances for today's. The form, the fact that we've done a bit of travelling, the fact that we played Thursday instead of Sunday. So you've got a team like City who are going to control possession, and you've got a team like us who aren't going to be able to control possession. Plus, we're missing players like Partey. We've got players like Kieran Tierney who looked like he was knackered towards the end. I think there was mitigating circumstances, as I say, and I was happy to just, as Cookie said, I was happy to almost chalk this one down as a free hit, but it still felt like we had opportunities to at least lay a glove on City, and we didn't really do that. Paul, sorry. Yeah. Any general thoughts on that?
You probably covered a little bit, but there was just there seemed to be an edginess, a little bit of a sloppiness where it really counted against us.
I think his internet's gone again, or mine has.
You can't hear me?
I can hear you fine, Paul.
Okay. How about you in the internet land out there? So I felt like we had some sloppiness in the final third. I felt, we tended to play back. We took a lot of low risk options tonight. We passed back a lot, especially Hector Bellerin. I felt like he didn't have a very good game at all. I felt he was a bit loose. A lot of our attacks seemed to end with him. It was disappointing because I think we had a chance to maybe get a draw at least out of that game. I mean, going into it, I thought we were probably going to lose. I didn't want us to lose, and that's not because I wanted. It wasn't supporting us to win, but I just felt like the way City are playing, the way we're playing, that they're in fine form, and I thought that they might do us a number today. So I was kind of happy that it was 1-0, and I thought it could have been a draw. I think we had some options. We had some, unlucky, like Saka slipping, just little things. We had chances and we didn't take them. And in games like that, you have to take them. What do you think, James?
I think we've lost Chris. Oh God, everyone's going today.
Have you guys spoken about performances and stuff? Did you feel anyone was particularly good, or anyone was particularly bad today?
It's hard to tell really, because when we did have possession, we didn't do much with it, and when we didn't have the ball, we really didn't have the ball. We didn't get close to City. I just thought, taking away individual performances aside, because I don't think there was anyone that was really outstanding. I don't think there was anyone that was particularly really, really poor. I just think the gulf between us and City is it's still so evident. And today, games like this are a real good way of showcasing, where we want to get to and still quite how far we are from that. And I feel like that's the case every single time we we play City. They just seem to beat us every single time. It's almost a foregone conclusion before we play them every single time. In the league, that is. In the cup, it's a different story. But if you look at our recent results against them, it's a loss like for practically the last 3-4 years. It's really, really,
we haven't even
really
scored,
poor.
have we?
No, it's really, really poor. Our form against them is absolutely abysmal. I don't think there's a team I want to beat more, obviously, than Spurs in the league at the minute. And they are just, they're a golfing class ahead of us at the moment, sadly.
Yeah, and to me, it looked like they were in second gear. Like, genuinely, they got their goal, and they in that second half, they were in second gear. And that's the thing that depresses me a bit, because I think to myself, this is a team that are playing within themselves, and we still can't lay a glove on them. I will say that, like I said earlier, I thought Xhaka was okay. I thought Aubameyang. Can we talk about Aubameyang a second? Because I actually think he had a stinker today. You know, he miscontrolled a few touches. He mishit a few passes. He was nudged off the ball quite easily. It's not going right for him, and when that doesn't go right, you know, you can't play a team like City. And Paul, I'll defer to you on this one, but you can't play a team like City. You can't play any of the top 5-6 teams when you've got players like Aubameyang that just aren't showing up, aren't holding the ball up, aren't bringing others into play. Can you?
Yeah, especially playing City, like you just pointed out, you need 11 people all functioning on all cylinders. You know, if you've got one person, that's missing in action, it's just too much. It's too easy for them to block you out of the game. And Aubameyang has been a conundrum for me this season, because he hasn't been great. I mean, obviously his goal scoring record is nothing like it's been for the last few seasons. And there have been times that this kind of the frustration has crept into his game. I mean, he ran around a lot, and he defended today, and he put in some important. He played some important parts and some moves, but mostly, like you said, he was just not making the runs, just sloppy, not good at the hold-up play. It just kind of kept the pressure on us at the back, and that's not where we needed it. You know what I mean? We wanted some kind of release up front, and whenever we did get a chance to go forward, it just seemed totally ineffective. I mean, Saka was kind of out of the game. He was marked out of the game. I thought that Odegaard was disappointing. I think I would have liked to have seen Emile Smith-Rowe start, because I think he's more studious. I think there's more likely some kind of magic to happen. He's got that quality, and he links up with Saka so well. I think we missed that. I thought Odegaard was safe. I think there was bits of Odegaard's game that last week reminded people of Ozil. There were bits in Odegaard's game tonight that reminded me of Ozil, but not the good Ozil, the one who's passing it off and not like actually going for goal himself, or like doing any kind of incisive cutting moves. He kind of just tended to shoulder it off onto other people. In fact, I saw that a lot today. I saw people not taking responsibility and shouldering it off and actually putting the next guy under pressure. Because there's where the City were pressing Xhaka, they all did it. They get given a pass, and there'd be a player hurtling at them, and then they'd pass it back to the person in the direction that the City player is hurtling towards, which just moved the pressure from you to the other person. So there was a lot of that, I felt, today.
And there was. I had questions as well about fatigue, and I guess this comes to the rotation question, doesn't it, Cookie? Because personally, I probably would have said we should be looking at taking Saka off. If we're not going to lay a glove on City, if we're going to be so passive, let's protect some of these players off. We can't afford for someone like Saka to break down, can we?
No, not at all. And I think, going back to that point of rotation, I mean, if you're going to play some of the players that we did say in place of our arguably more important ones for that game on Thursday, it makes you wonder why didn't we play Martinelli, Lacazette from the start? I mean, surely these are also guys that need minutes, especially when you're looking at Aubameyang, who is, I don't want to say drastically out of form. I know that he is going to get some criticism today, and I think it's a really odd one with Aubameyang, because he's not really like a traditional striker. I never think of him that way. I don't trust him leading the line on his own. I think when Lacazette plays in place of him, he makes himself a lot more known and a lot more present in the game than Aubameyang does, especially these type of games where he's phased out of play. I think he's so much more dangerous on the left cutting in. And even if you look at the goals he got against Leeds, they all come from the left-hand side pretty much, apart from the penalty. He's always drifting in from the left. So I think it's, him leading the line just offers us, I think it really limits us. And I think he does make those good runs. I think maybe with better personnel around him, we'd see a higher goal return. But at the minute, I've completely forgotten what your question was, mate. Sorry about that.
That's fine. We're talking about Saka and whether or not he should be.
Yeah.
He was talking about Saka and whether or not he should have been taken off. My view is that he's starting to look a bit tired, and that's manifesting itself in he drops off of play. We don't see as much of him. Maybe he should have been taken off after 65 minutes. But I can understand to an extent. He's an X factor player, and recently he's done so well. And if we get a chance or something like that, then maybe Mikel wants to keep him on the pitch. But it's the same with Tierney as well, Paul. I thought Tierney was really good in that first half, apart from the goal, of which obviously he's culpable, 3 of the 4 centre-backs culpable. But I thought Tierney was getting forward well, and he just started to look really tired towards the end. I just thought, why are we still playing him? Just bring on Cedric. I could understand in terms of the substitutions, Ceballos comes on 85 minutes. Like, I don't really understand that. Odegaard comes off for Emile Smith-Rowe. Okay, fine. So maybe that's an injection of something a little bit different. And then Holding comes off for a concussion to David Luiz. Fine. But the Ceballos substitution, I didn't really understand. And I didn't, like you said, I didn't really understand why he doesn't get someone like Martinelli on to run at Man City, because Cancelo was on a yellow card. And if the ball breaks to someone like Martinelli, he's got more pace than Aubameyang by the looks of it at the moment, hasn't he? Paul.
Yeah, and he's hungry, and that's what kind of got us out of our doldrums, earlier on in the season, is the youth and that hunger and that desire and that lack of fear meant that they were making the choices that we needed to break down a City team. You need to be a little bit brave. Fortune literally favors the brave, and I felt like Arteta, he made a lot of safe choices, and safe got us through 1-0. But safe isn't gonna, let us, take advantage of a City that, like you say, were in second gear. We had, I think, more possession than they had in the second half. They gave it to us, and we did nothing with it. That was frustrating because they literally allowed us to have the ball, most of that second half. So I think we needed, when Lacazette came on, I don't think he touched the ball for the 15 minutes that he was there. I think he didn't touch it for the first 10 of that. It was just. It was frustrating, but at the same time, I think we need to highlight the positive parts of that. Is that I do think Arteta knows. I could see his tactics working. It worked in the most important game for us, which was knocking City out of the FA Cup, and we won the FA Cup. And for me, that's fine. If that's the only time he ever beat City, like for the next couple of years, it was a very meaningful time. He got us into the final, and we won the cup. As far as I'm concerned, that's awesome. But he managed to outwit Pep in that game, and there were elements today that I could see that he had Pep's number in some ways. I think that literally the way that they played the midfield, we had Rob Holding and Pablo Mari running up, following Gundogan and De Bruyne all the way up into their third. I mean, their defensive third, completely out of position, just man marking these players, and you could see City struggling, I think, to figure out a way of getting their creative players into the game. And it looked like a mess. I mean, our players were everywhere. We had, players at the back that, filling in for Holding and Murray because they were, roaming, man-marking. But I thought we did really well. I thought in that sense, from going 1-0 down in 75 seconds or whatever it was, I think that there's a lot of positives to be said that they did 4 or 5 or 6, because that's what they're doing these days. Yeah. And I think they would like to. I don't think Pep would have said, 1-0 is fine. I don't think they were happy being 1-0, to be honest.
There's always an opportunity, isn't there? There's always that opportunity, and Sky was sort of saying it as well. Whilst it's 1-0, he only takes a corner and a little flicked in balls. Lord knows, as Arsenal fans, we've seen it millions of times, haven't we, where a team basically has nothing at the Emirates and then gets a scabby corner or a free kick or something, and suddenly we find ourselves level. But are you taking positives then quickly from this? Like, one of the positives, let's try, as we come towards the end of today's podcast or pub chat, let's try and focus on some of the positives. For me, I look at that game and think, no Thomas Partey in our midfield. Take out El Neni and put in Thomas Partey, and we've got quite a different team. If we'd have had a full week instead of messing about going off to Rome in the Europa League on Thursday night and then playing City on the Sunday. You know, if we've got a full week's worth of rest, then I think potentially Arteta's got a little bit more to work with. And also, I thought tactically, you know, he was forced into moving some things around with some players on fatigue. So I guess that's sort of a backhanded positive, if you like. But is there any other positives you take from it, Cook?
Yeah, I think it's just good that we didn't get hammered. I know that's a very small positive, but if we'd have lost this game 4-5-0 going into the Thursday night, I mean, that wouldn't have boded well. And the fact that we've got some exceedingly tough games coming up in the league.
I had my Arsenal heart. Look at that.
You might need it for next week, mate. When we've got
the fireman's helmet is my hard hat for being an Arsenal fan. I think we should all have one.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, Kiki, go on.
No, that's all right, mate. I think, considering, I think someone put it in the comments as well, you know, City have hammered every other team that's in and around where we are. I mean, you only had to look at the way they beat Liverpool not too long ago. So, yeah, I think losing in the way we did is never ideal, but, I mean, we lost gracefully, I suppose. I mean, we certainly weren't embarrassed and we held our own at times, but the fact is, like we've already spoken about, we didn't do anything with the possession that we did have, created next to no opportunities. Again, I mean, they've got one of the best defences in the world at the minute. They're one of the best teams in the world. I think that's given. And they are the team that is going to win this league. So there's nothing to be too down about. But I think when you look at the fixtures we've got coming up, I mean, I don't know how you guys feel about the league or how relevant it is. I'm pretty resigned to the fact that, you know, we're not going to do anything in the league this season. But I always had that horrible kind of feeling of hope whilst it's still statistically possible for us to get top four. I don't know why, because I know it's not going to happen. But when you look at those games coming up, Spurs, Leicester, and we've got to play, you know, the likes of Liverpool, Chelsea still, it's going to be difficult. And I'm not sure what I'm expecting from the league, but I think we really do need a good win on Thursday, a convincing win, and we need to put those chances away that we missed the other night. And then Leicester at the weekend, if we could win that, that'd be fantastic. I don't think it changes anything in terms of getting top four, but if we could win those two games, I definitely feel like this game would very, very quickly go to the back of our minds, and we'd be talking about us being on the right track and making progress again.
Yeah, and that's why this is a free hit, because right now there isn't a team on the planet that's playing Man City with the form that they're in and coming away with a win. And because of the whole COVID situation with no fans in the stadiums, it's basically completely wiped out any kind of home or away advantage. The only advantage that you get from being a home team is that you don't have to travel as far. That's it. So for me, you know, like you said, James, they're romping to this title. It almost feels like, you know, one of those things in FIFA where you just get sort of I don't know if this is just me, but you just get loads of players sent off so that you take the 3-0 automatic defeat. You know, it just felt like one of those where we just need to just park this, say, nah, we're done with it, and go from there. But Paul, looking ahead to the game on Thursday, how many of these players that played today do you think will play on Thursday, and how many should and have done enough to suggest the start?
I think Arteta is probably going to rotate and play Luiz and Gabriel in the middle, especially with Holding having got this head injury. And Murray was fine. I thought he was pretty solid, but I do think that with the language issue with Luiz and Gabriel, obviously both speaking Portuguese too against Benfica, it's probably useful having those two in there. You know, they can pick up, you know, any stuff that's going on, you know, language-wise in the opposing team. I don't see. You know, we do need to win, and so I don't see him taking the safe chances, like, you know, with El Neni starting, for instance. I think we're more likely to see Smith Rowe start. I think that's why he was rested today. I'd like to see him maybe play with Ceballos and Xhaka. I thought that they weren't bad in the first leg, and then I'd like to see. I think Lacazette has been unfairly left out in the last, it seems like 5 or 6 games, because I think he's useful in breaking teams down. I think he puts a shift in up front. And like you said, with Aubameyang kind of going through a bit of a brown patch, I don't know. Hopefully Willian doesn't start. I'm not sure about Pepe. I'd probably like to see Lacazette and Saka and who else would play. I'd like to see Martinelli.
Doesn't feel like that's ever happening anytime soon, though, does it? Which is a very, very odd situation. With every passing game, it feels more and more odd that he's not even getting minutes as a sub. I think he came on against Benfica, didn't he? But he didn't really have too much to do in the sort of last few minutes. But I'm hoping
one of the things today, Chris, what we left out is that Willian didn't play.
Yeah, that's definitely a positive. And let's end this on a positive then. So, lads, we lose. It was a free hit. Maybe there's some frustration that perhaps we could have at least seen what City were made of. Maybe we paid them a bit too much respect. We can't afford to be paying Benfica respect on Thursday. We need to go for it. Arteta needs to revive this campaign, and it looks ever more increasingly likely that the way he does that is through the Europa League. So fingers crossed for that. We'll be back for a post-match pubcast on that Thursday game. I think it might be Gav that's hosting. So make sure you all look after him. And thank you very much for joining us. And we will see you next time. So Cookie, lovely to have you on as always, mate.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Chris. Been a pleasure talking to you guys tonight.
Always a pleasure. And Paul, as always, thank you very much.
Cheers. Thanks for joining us, folks. And thanks for hosting, Chris.
Yes, and we will see you next time on the Gunners Town post-match podcast. Laters, people.
Up the Arsenal.